Welcome everyone to episode 77 of the Circle Back podcast, the show where three great friends get together and just talk about video games. I'm Dan LaMarca. As always, I am joined by Shelby White.
Hey, how we doing? I'm back.
And no Dan Dufresnoy. Dan, unfortunately, is sick, so get better, buddy. We feel bad for you. He was very excited for this episode, as he always is, and we miss you. But it's good to have you on, Shelby. It's been a little while.
I know. Since Game of the Year.
I know. I have been playing a ton of games. I know you have been pretty busy, so you haven't gotten around to much. But let's talk about the game that you've been playing first.
All right.
What you been up to?
So what I kind of did at the end, January is always my lull. It's like I'm either finishing up games that I was rushing to play at the end of end of the previous year, or I'm just playing something completely different or old. And but I didn't pick it up until January, and I wish I picked up earlier. But I started playing Pokemon Shield. I know it came out last year. Everybody was playing it. I know you said you breezed through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's
it's like a good one.
I'm having just as much fun as I did when I played Let's Go Eevee, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. So I mean it's a pretty easy game, you know.
Yes, it is.
Very easy to level up, especially since all your Pokemon
the shared XP.
Yeah, the shared XP thing really helps go through it. But it's I like the open wild area stuff, you know, all that stuff that they talked about, and they were like, "Oh, this is new," and people got excited about. It's fun, you know?
Yeah. My thing with that game, I mean, did you put in a bunch of hours? Or you like?
I think I'm about halfway through.
Through the gyms?
Yeah, I think I'm about halfway through the gyms.
Okay, because the one complaint I have about that game is that it is a little too easy, and I wouldn't necessarily change the fact that they do the shared XP. I think that's an awesome idea because, you know, when at the end of the game you catch a new Pokemon, you want to add them to your roster. It sucks doing that old Pokemon thing. Throwing them in first, pulling them out, then putting in someone else. It's just tedious. It's unnecessary. But
I know my Magikarp is already Gyarados, you know, and I didn't even have to use him because he's
beautiful. But that's really cool. I think they should have just added. You know what it is, Shelb? I'm playing Temtem.
Right.
And it's just so much more challenging and interesting, the battles, that it makes me look back. Like, I loved Pokemon Sword when I played it, but I look back on it and I'm like, I think I know why it's just kind of like a breezy, you know, hey, this is a fun, but, you know, no real friction type of experience. And I know a lot of people play competitive Pokemon where they, like, you know, make their teams and then go online and whatever. And if you're going to do that, like, you know, Pokemon Sword and Shield is great for that. Yeah. But I think for the main game, the reason it wasn't something that I was like, oh, maybe this will be on my top 10 is because it's really, you know, it doesn't make you think a lot, you know. And I've been playing more Temtem, and that game just continues to get more interesting. I mean, similarly, they run into some problems that the old Pokemon games had, where it's like, all right, you have to return to this, you know, the Pokemon centers frequently or whatever. So, like, you go out, battle some guys, you know, backtrack to the Pokemon center, refresh. I mean, they added something called the Temtem Vial, which is basically like a one-use Estus flask for your whole team.
Okay.
And it revives and heals. So, like, say you're down to one Temtem and you're out of battle, you can just heal everyone once. So it kind of, like, mitigates that a little bit, but it doesn't quite go far enough. I was hoping that you could, like, upgrade that vial so that you can have, like, a couple of uses each time.
And then just make, like, areas of play longer between Pokemon or so-and-so centers.
Exactly, the Temporiums, if you will.
Okay.
But they
really going on that suffix there.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I've been really loving Temtem the more and more I play it. Like, it's so smartly done, and I love the way that they communicate with their fans. Like, they're constantly tweeting out, all right, patch coming up in an hour, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They ironed out a ton of issues that they had at launch. I probably have put in about 20 hours into Temtem since, you know, last episode. and it's just so cool. Like it's grindy in a way that those old Pokemon games were grindy.
Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, I want to get my guys leveled up so I could do this, in this case, dojo battle.
Right.
But it's just enjoyable, and the decisions that you're making are so much more varied. Like the guys that you're fighting are not like when you go to fight an enemy, they will have multiple types. As usually in Pokemon games, it's like, all right, you go to this gym, it's all water types. So I hope you brought grass type and electric because you'll kill them. In this one, it's like usually they have 2 or 3 different. So like you're kind of swapping in and out, and because it's a 2v2 instead of 1-on-1, sometimes you want 2 of different types in at the same time to attack each individual Temtem, but then you're putting one at risk because that one's weak to one of the types that's out there. It's neat. It's
more strategy to it.
More strategy to it, but it's still that nice base level that like anyone can get into. It's just, I think they did an awesome job with this game, and I'm super excited. I mean, a lot of people are playing it now, but I'm excited for when they do a wider release to consoles and stuff, so that more and more people can play.
Right.
Anything else on Pokemon Shield or?
Not much.
Just been enjoying it. Any of the new Pokemon that you've fallen in love with
you
yet?
know what? That's the biggest thing. I'm like struggling because I sit there and I'm like, well, it used to be 151 Pokemon, and I would know what level they were going to upgrade at. And like now I'm like, how do I upgrade this thing? Like I wind up
looking at
Googling it. Yeah,
exactly.
And I'm like, so some of this stuff's ridiculous. I mean, it's like you got to do it, and they have to be friendly with you at night, it's like, what is this absurdity?
It's nuts.
But there's just so many Pokemon. Some of them are cool. I mean, the starters are basic.
Yeah, they're fine.
They're fine. And then I like that they still add in your regular Pokemon.
Yeah.
Well, not regular. The original 151, I guess. So, yeah, it's fun.
It's good.
I'm enjoying figuring out what each new Pokemon
and also
does,
they're going to put out that they've announced that they're adding 200 more.
Really?
Yeah. Not brand new ones, like older ones that aren't in the game now.
Okay. From like the previous installments.
Including a bunch of legendaries with like, Galarian or Galarian they're called, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I do have one of the I guess when they recently did like a Nintendo event, they announced like the Pokemon 2 like expansions.
That's when they announced they're adding in with the expansions.
Gotcha. So I actually didn't know that when they did the expansion. If I was playing the game at the same time, and you can go in, and all of a sudden one of the guys says, "Hey, why don't you go check out this train station over here?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I went there, and it was like a Slowpoke with yellow all over him.
Oh, yeah?
But it was like a Slowpoke from the new expansion, but they basically gave it to you. You like go in there and they're like,
really?
"Oh, this Slowpoke's in the train station." You just throw a Pokeball at it and catch it. And I was like, "Oh, all right." Like it was the...
I actually love that. I had no idea about that.
I want to say, what is it? The Galarian Slowpoke. And I was like, all right, whatever. I got this Slowpoke now. And I guess that was kind of your introduction to when this expansion comes out. Go to the train station.
Very cool. I like that.
So that was cool.
Awesome.
Other than that, yeah. I find it funny with some of the things like I didn't realize because I had, other than Red, Blue, and Yellow, I had never played any of the other Pokemon games in that series. So like when I came across the Galarian Meowth, and I was like, it didn't say Galarian, it just said Meowth, and I was like,
he's got the big beard.
Yeah, I was like, what is this thing? This isn't Meowth. But yeah, no. Other than that, yeah, it's fun. Again, it's just a good time. It's something to pick up.
It's a really good, fun game And I, like I said, I really like the changes that they made in Eevee, and they are still doing it where you can see them in the wild.
Yep.
It's really nice. I like that a
Very
lot.
nice.
And that's one thing about Temtem. It's still all random encounters, so it's, a little... I mean, Temtem goes for the old school Pokemon way rather than the new style, which... there's a fan base for that, so I understand why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I love what Temtem's doing. It's just the little things here and there where I'm like, I wish they would check it out. Yeah. But,
It's like, because clearly they took their inspiration
off
that, and it's just like they were nitpicking what they liked, what they didn't like.
Exactly.
There'll be a perfect combination sometime.
I'm sure. The other games I'm playing, so actually Temtem's an early access game too.
Right.
But I was actually looking at the games that I played that have come out this year, and every single one of them is early access, except for Kentucky Route Zero Act 5.
Okay.
So I'll talk about Kentucky Route Zero quick. I can't say much about Act 5 without spoiling some things.
Right.
I will say it is one of the, as a complete package, it's one of like my favorite gaming experiences of the last like 10 years. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
I played, I have a weird history of Kentucky Route Zero. When it first came out, Act 1, I played it in 2014 or 13 or whatever it was.
Uh-huh.
Played it, and then like was like, okay, I want to wait until it all comes out. Waited, and then I think it was actually January of last year. I remember we talked about it on the podcast. I jumped back in and I played Act 1 again, then 2, 3, and I didn't play 4. I stopped at 3.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I love this. This is amazing. Act 5 should be coming out soon, and that was the beginning of last year, so I wanted to wait on Act 4, so it was like fresh in my mind.
Is it like an every year? Is it an annual?
So the way they've launched, actually, it's kind of bizarre. It was like Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3, they all came out in like 3 years, and then Act 4 was like 2-year break.
Okay.
From 4 to 5, 4 came out in 2016.
So
it's been a long wait. Yeah, it's been a
4 year
wait. But the conclusion to this game is just incredible. If anyone doesn't know what it is, the high-level pitch that I will give is it's like a point-and-click-esque adventure game, but it's mostly text. It's kind of... So it's a magical realist story, if you know, like, Gabriel Garcia Marquez or a little bit of a Lynchian, but truly like magical realism where it's like bizarre things are happening in the world around you, but you are just experiencing a normal story as if everything is normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of magical realism in a nutshell. And when it's done properly, it's used to convey themes and messages about its world in the magical moments that are happening around you. It's almost like a visualization of the metaphor, right? So like that's kind of what these are. And like 100 Years of Solitude by Marquez is like one of my favorite books ever. Mm-hmm. And this so clearly, Cardboard Computer, the company that made this game, is also in love with that. Like one of the main characters is named Shannon Marquez, and it's like that's kind of like the most overt they get into their like references, but it really does show like what they're going for, right?
Right.
And so I'll get back to saying the high level pitch of this game is it's about what like capitalism when capitalism fails and like industrialization fails, like what's left behind is like its own wasteland kind of. So it's like you're grappling with the consequences of what giant corporations can move into a town, make it a big mining town or like a factory town. Everyone works at the mill in the town, and then when that corporation decides it's not profitable and they leave, what happens? Like what happens to these people? This is their life. They don't know what to do, and then it's this big hulking infrastructure with just abandoned. And it's like I feel like we don't get a lot of that in games. Actually, we probably get none of that in games. Yeah. This is almost, I kind of would describe this game as a like interactive novel, really. Like the visualizations of what you're seeing are beautiful, but it's the visuals paired with the text that you're actually reading. Like it's almost like this is like you know, one of the best novels I've ever read, you know what I mean, in a game framing. And the thing that it does that I think is interesting is it allows you, and depending on what act you're playing, it kind of waxes and wanes on this front, but it will let you choose what, like who says what. So like you start as just this man Conway who, like, you know, is an antique truck driver that is trying to make a delivery, and you slowly like start picking up like a band of other people, and you get like kind of a crew together, and you're not deciding like dialogue choices in the way of like a Telltale type of game. You're more of like, it might give you the option of like, Shannon says this and Ezra says this and Conway says this. Which one do you choose? Like, you're kind of like working along the dialogue. You're kind of like the director. You're kind of like, who do I want this scene to focus on?
Okay.
And the narrative just kind of flows with it. And it's not changing like the ending, but it's totally framing your experience as you're going and changing the story as it's written. So it's not like a lot of games are like, think about Mass Effect, where it's like your decisions will matter, or like a Telltale game, your decisions will matter and you'll get a different ending based on what you said. The Cardboard Computer is not interested in that at all. Yeah. They're interested in saying like, our narrative
is like
fluid.
This. Yeah. Is there not one main character? Like, even though you technically play this guy,
exactly.
Shannon? So there's not.
Yeah. There's Shannon and Conway and Ezra and Junebug. There's just all these different people that are along for this ride, and you're kind of just you're kind of writing the experience with them. Right. It's like a collaboration between the company that made the game and you, making these decisions of how you want these scenes to flow. I think director is like the best way to describe it, because like,
well, it sounds like it, yeah.
But it's just such a unique experience, and for it to be this well written and like well orchestrated. I mean, everything, the music, the visuals, the writing, like everything is just perfect, like super well done. And I just am really, really happy with it as a finished product. It released on January 28th in its final form, where it's called Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition. It's on Switch as one package.
Okay. All 5 acts.
All 5 acts. I think it's $20 or $25, something like that. But it's the whole game, and all the interludes. So the way that they did it was they released Act 1, and then a few months later they put out Interlude 1. And it's like a little mini story. They're basically their own acts, because some of them are like incredibly, I don't want to, I'm going to spoil one of them just because I want to give you the idea that they're not all gameplay experiences per se. One of them is literally like a phone number that you call on your phone, and you can like button through this pre-recorded thing that like is like a travel guide to what's going to be the main area of Act 4. So before Act 4 comes out, you're on the phone hitting different prompts to be like local wildlife, and then it's a guy talking, and like it's just
like your actual phone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But that's kind of like this game is so interested in blending like personal experience and stories with like your gameplay experience.
Right.
So like, it's just such a special thing, and I think more people should play it because it really, really is fantastic.
It's like the create your own story Goosebumps books, but the modernized, better version.
Yeah, but it's like, but imagine if those were like, a great literature. You know what I'm saying? Like that's. And they're just it's so sharp in what it's saying without trying to beat you over the head with anything. It's just incredibly well done, and I'm super happy with the way it's turned out. So please check it out if you haven't, and make sure you play all those interludes in between.
Yeah. Are those included in that TV edition package? Cool.
When they were putting them out act by act, you had to download like separate executables for the interludes.
Okay.
In the TV edition, it's all in game, and you just choose Act 1, Interlude 1, Act 2, Interlude 2. But it lets you. It's like a spinning wheel is the like
main menu.
Yeah. So it'll let you go Act 1 to Act 2 and skip the interlude. So make sure you play those in order, because they're really, really great. But yeah, that's all I'll say about that. I can't talk specifics about Act 5. It's fantastic. It's totally unexpected and just brilliant. Like I absolutely love it.
Good to know.
I really want everyone to play it. It's so good. The only other disclaimer I'll say is Act 1. I love Act 1. It's a little bit slower than the rest. I mean, it's a slow game in general. It's like a lot of text to read. It wants to wash over you, and it's like themes of what it's going for. So you need to be in for that if this is going to be your thing. But Act 1 in particular, I think, is a little bit slow. So if you get through Act 1 and you're like, it's cool, but I don't know if I love it, play Act 2, and then if you want to jump off, jump off.
It's like the pilot episode of a new TV series.
Yeah.
Pilot episode's a rough one, always.
Yeah. But man, it's just really, really special thing.
Nice.
So I had
Very
mentioned before that Kentucky Route Zero Act 5 is the only game that has come out this year, not in early access, that I've played.
Right.
Because the other 3 games that I'm going to talk about, in addition to Temtem being early access, are all early access games.
Yeah.
And they're really fucking good, all 3 of them. And then Temtem makes 4. Like it's pretty incredible start to the year for early access.
Yeah.
First one I'll talk about is Legends of Runeterra. This is the card game, like a customizable card by League of Legends Riot. So it's a League of Legends card game.
Okay.
That Riot made, and I don't play League of Legends. I've talked on here a lot about how I played Dota a lot.
Right.
But Legends of Runeterra is like a fantastic card game in the style of like a Hearthstone, a Magic, those types of games. Artifact, if you will. But Legends of Runeterra is interesting because it came out in early access, and it's obviously made by Riot, who has a shitload of money. Is very, very slick in its presentation. So like they do a thing where your champions cards can level up, and whenever they level, like there are specific conditions in the game that cause them to level up. So like the Spider Queen, if there are 3 other spiders on your board, she levels up. And the level up animations where it like pops out and like shows the card transforming and doing all this stuff, like it's very cool, very slick. And that kind of stuff actually goes a really long way with these card games because you're seeing this stuff a lot, so it better be nice looking. Like Magic the Gathering Arena is like one of my favorite. Magic the Gathering is the best card game for my money, but it is a little more bare bones because they don't have the budget of like a Riot to do this sort of thing. But Runeterra does some interesting things that are not exactly to separate itself from these other games, which you have to do. Obviously, you can't just copy and paste and think that you're going to get away with that. But I do like a lot of things that they're going for. I told you about the leveling up of the champions. They do a lot of good tutorialization in the beginning of this game. So like if you haven't played one of these, one-on-one card games, this might be a good jumping on point because they do a lot of good tutorializing, and then they give you like 2 or 3, fully completed decks that you can use online to play other people, if you're not comfortable with building your own decks. And it's just a really good one of those, like I don't have too much to say about it specifically.
Yeah.
I probably put in like 5 hours and just really enjoyed my time with it. So if you like card games or if you like League of Legends, try to check this one out. I think it's a really good one of these.
Speaking of card games, I just saw recently that a speedrunner finished Slay the Spire in 5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
5-minute speed run.
How's that possible?
I watched like the first half of it. It was almost like he knew what was happening before it even happened. Like it was crazy.
That's insane.
Absolutely crazy.
That's insane.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of a good card game from last year. Yeah.
I did play a little bit more of Slay the Spire, the new character.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, it's really, really good. Yeah. I love that new character.
I know. I got it on Switch, and like I said, I've been mobile gaming lately with a lot of traveling, so I'll definitely jump back into it.
Man, it's so good. Next one I have on the list for the early access games that I've been playing is ScourgeBringer. Okay. This is a game that kind of, a lot of these games came out of nowhere. The early access games launching. This game is a roguelike but it's a 2D like platforming centric. It's almost like a Celeste.
Okay.
If Celeste had combat.
Okay.
And it was roguelike. So you have your roguelike map where it's room, branch, room, branch, room, branch. It's like a series of tiles interconnected. And you go from room to room, and you have a double jump and a dash attack that you can use for mobility. And it's basically you get into a room, clear that room, and then randomly you might get like an upgrade or a weapon drop or something like that. Your X button is just a regular slash. You can kind of like mash it out to continue to hit enemies. And as long as you're if you jump up in the air and slash an enemy, you'll stay in the air, like hovering near them and just slash. And then your Y button is a like stun attack. And you can use that to interrupt enemies' moves. So it'll be like someone charging up, and you'll see like a little exclamation point above their head. If you stun them, they won't get that attack out, and then you can start slashing. So you're kind of like bouncing around. The mobility feels great. Celeste is a good comparison in the like feel of the game. Like you move around in a really smooth way. You do a lot of jumping, dashing, and then you also you can either use the right stick or the right trigger, I think, to shoot a gun. And the gun powers up by you killing enemies. So like once you kill a certain amount, all right, now you have a certain number of uses of the gun. And it just all feels really, really good. And the pixel art is amazing, like beautiful. And then they have a thing where, because it's a roguelike, whenever you die, you go back to this like, tree of life or whatever, and you can spend points that you gain by beating bosses or mini bosses to upgrade, like permanent upgrades, like Rogue Legacy style. So it's like, a permanent +1 to your HP. Here's a thing that allows you to fast travel from your mini map or whatever. And it's like, it just plays really, really well, and I like the way it looks. The rogue aspects of it, I haven't played enough to dive into. I've probably played about an hour of this game. It just came out on not Game Pass for Xbox, Game Pass for PC.
Okay.
It's free on. So I was jumping in there, and I really like it. I need to see if it's something that's going to like stay with me, and that's going to come down to like what the rogue like elements are and like how much changes when you beat the boss. Do you go to a new area? How does that work? I haven't really gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
But ScourgeBringer, I think it's really, really cool. It's got like a Hyperlight Drifter-esque intro cinematics where it's like setting up the world. This big obelisk comes down from the sky and like kills a bunch of people, and you're like literally going into the obelisk and trying to climb up to the top.
All right.
So pretty neat game. I really like what I played so far. I haven't played enough to really say for sure what I think. But that's ScourgeBringer. Like I said, it's free on Xbox Game Pass for PC. And it is on PC. Otherwise, it might be on Steam. I'm not sure, but it is early access.
Okay.
Last one is maybe my favorite of the bunch of the new early access games. It's also by far like the weirdest. It's called Not for Broadcast.
Okay.
It is a game where you picture yourself first-person view sitting in a computer chair at a switchboard for a news program. And you are pressing buttons on your keyboard as if it's like a switchboard to do various things. So the example that I'll start with is you have 4 monitors that are different camera shots. Then you have one main feed, and then you have one live feed that's 3 seconds delayed or whatever. So you are it takes place in the 80s in Britain.
Okay.
So you're taking out VHS tapes, putting them into VHS players that have like advertisements on them.
All right.
So like you might have a single shot of an anchor, staring straight into the camera, talking, saying his thing. You switch to camera 1, he starts talking, then it fades to like an intro, and then there's a countdown at the top of when you need to play the ad, and you go over, click the button for the ad, it starts playing, and then you let the ad play, and then when it comes back, or it might be someone interviewing. So now you're getting scored. There's a little meter at the top. It's not a score. It's your audience's like interest.
Like a retention rate on
Yeah, it kind of is. And it's a green up arrow and a red down arrow. And the bar has like green, yellow, and red going from, left to right. And as the interest goes up, you'll get more green bars. If it starts going down, you'll go into the yellow and then eventually the red.
And that's based on timing with.
So here's what's interesting about it. You're actually say it's a one-on-one interview.
Mm-hmm.
You are switching between who's talking and a wide shot of both.
Okay.
So if someone's talking for more than 10 seconds, you shouldn't linger on that person alone for more than 10 seconds. So instead of switching to the person that's just sitting there nodding their head, you put it in a wide shot for a few seconds.
Right.
And then you go back on that person. And then if they're going back and forth, you're switching between a close-up of one, a close-up of the other. And this all may not sound interesting. It's really, really fun to do. And then they start throwing in things like space bars to censor if someone curses, but it's a 3-second delay. So you got to listen for the curse, wait, 1, 2, 3, hold the space bar, bleep it out, let it go. You also end up choosing like still frames of people. And I'll get into what makes the game really interesting in a minute, but it's like I just want to give you the setup of like how the game is controlled, what you're doing. Where it gets interesting is it's all very snarky British humor where like
it's my favorite.
It's really, really good, actually. I like it a lot. The whole crux of the game is it's a political party wins. The very first scene that you're doing is this political party that's redistributing the wealth wins. Like it starts with them winning.
Okay.
And they won the election. And you go to them live, it's these two people. One is like a former TV star, and one is, I forget what she's done, if she's just a politician or whatever, but they paired up, and you are, like, basically they're saying, we are going to take from the rich, however much and then they're literally sending out checks to everyone else with their money. Like they're literally taking their money and they're saying, first we're starting by taking your passports, because if you're rich, you're not fleeing the country on us. We're coming around, we're taking all your passports. Then we're seizing your assets while you're here. You'll have enough to live just like everyone else, but your money is now everyone else's money. And what's interesting is the game, as you play these different scenes, so you're editing the news, multiple things happen that are interesting. The first is you are changing the narrative depending on what you do. So these still frames I mentioned briefly before. So an example is like this new this new young hotshot CEO was just hired at this company and she's famous for this toy, whatever. And you're choosing between her in like a cap and gown, like graduating photo, or her like rolling dice on like a casino board. And what you're doing is you're actually changing the narrative of what's going on. So if you do the scholar one, whatever,
paint her in a better light than you.
So not only paint her in a better light, you're actually like changing who she is, like in the story. You know what I'm saying? So like you're actually saying like the anchor will say, because I played this part twice.
Yeah.
The anchor will say, she's known for her great grades and blah, blah, whatever, and she was voted like most likely to be CEO, whatever. And then if you do the other thing, she's known for taking big risks and whatever. Like you're actually changing what's going on. And number one, that's really interesting in a game like this. Number two, it's so like unsettling that like your decisions are changing these people's lives, and it's obviously trying to say something about the news in general.
Yeah.
But it's really,
It's like
really
a fake
good.
news simulator.
Yeah, it's really good. And a thing that I absolutely fucking love. So there's a bunch of stuff in this game that I just am head over heels for.
Yeah.
My favorite one is when you're playing the ads, you still have access to those camera feeds. So like it'll cut and you can just listen in on the anchor being like, oh, what the fuck was that about? Like going off and like behind the scenes, or there's this actor that's coming in for an interview and you get to see before he gets there, like you have the anchor on the main feed, but you can look at camera 3 and 4 when they're getting ready for the interview, and he's like cursing at his agent or whatever. Like it's just so cool, like the way that they are weaving the story in between like the behind the scenes stuff and the stuff that's going on the screen, and it jumps around time a lot. So it might be like 50 days later, 180 days later for the third act or whatever. And it's just awesome. Like it's so awesome. And it's so satisfying to play, but it's also just, I'm hooked on the narrative, and I just like the cheeky British, like funny, ridiculous humor.
Is that political venture like the main?
That's the main thrust of the game. Yeah. And you get people on the show to like talk about the political winning or whatever. And there's this guy that's like, he's kind of like an Alex Jonesy stand-in, but he like keeps like putting his book on the table and like promoting his book. Like it's just smart and really, really, really neat. I have never played a game like it, and it's really, really good. Something else that I love is you can go back and look at a number of things after you've done the full episode.
Right.
You can watch your cut, which is actually really cool because it's what the audience saw on the TV.
Right.
And if you're like, dude, I'm nailing these cuts, like it's just so cool to see like your full broadcast and your like fuck ups where you're like cutting to the person that's just like looking, or you're cutting to behind the scenes and you're like, oh shit, and you hit the other button. So that's awesome. But also you can look back on the full 4 screens and you can just watch one thing. So like if you were focused on one part and you're like, oh, I want to see what's going on there, but I got to actually do my job and change the, make these cuts, you can go back and rewatch those scenes.
Like a character's reactions or something like that. That's pretty cool.
And the other thing, so something I think they will change, I think they might actually have talked about it on their early access. The one thing is when you go back to watch those, you cannot like fast forward or skip around. So sometimes so it's like, all right, I literally got to watch the 3 minutes of commercial here if I want to see what happens after what I did or whatever. So that's something obvious that I think they're going to change. But other than that, like I'm kind of just in love with the game. In between episodes, you get kind of like a Twine game experience of where you played Firewatch or no?
No.
Okay. The beginning of the game of Firewatch is very much shaped like these interstitials, where it's text on a screen. So you get like an image of like a living room, and there's a TV and whatever, and then there's text on the screen that like something happens in your life. So it's like, all right, you're going on vacation with your wife. It's the first time in months that you guys have been able to get away from the kids. You're really looking forward to it. Before you leave, you see there's a message on the answering machine. You press play. It's your boss. He says, you have to come in and work overtime today. What do? And you make the decision. And then the game plays out and changes based on that kind of stuff. So in between these episodes, you're kind of like changing your character's like thread of what they're doing. And I won't spoil anything else for that because I think it's actually pretty interesting. It's not the strong suit of the game, obviously. Like really what you're there for is the behind the scenes, switchboard stuff. But that stuff is an interesting like change up so that you're not just constantly doing the same thing.
Right.
And I really like this game. Like
it sounds cool.
It's really, really cool. So yeah, that game is not for broadcast. It's out in early access on Steam only at this time. But I'll also say that the way it's doing early access is interesting. It has the first 3 episodes finished, and they said there will be 10 in the final version. So I'm assuming as they're patching and rolling it out, they'll put out more episodes. It's interesting as we get into like what early access is.
Yeah.
How that's changing so much, because it's not there's no rules to it, right? Like, people are doing it so differently.
Yeah.
Like, I look at Hades that's doing like when the game first came out in early access, it was like fully polished, great game, and then they just add stuff. This is like a story-based game. Only the first 3 episodes are out, and then the rest will roll out later. So I'm kind of like interested. I mean, it's going to vary person to person, like what they can put up with as far as, like, you know how I was just talking about Kentucky Route Zero. It's kind of a similar thing where it's like, maybe you're the type of person that's like, hey, when Not For Broadcast is out fully, I'll play it. Yeah. But I don't want to play the first 3 and then wait and then play 2 more and then wait. And it all depends on who you are. I mean, I say this game's amazing right now. We'll go play the first 3 episodes. But
and you know the developers are sitting there. They're more or less they've probably been working on this for months, years, and just want to show people, but they know it's not fully ready. Plus, we also live in a day and age where movies and games and stuff like that are very heavily influenced by people. Look, take the friggin' Sonic movie, for example. They changed the whole movie because people fucking hated something about it, you know? So it's like, it's good to get it out there and see what people think.
Yeah.
So that way you can give the best possible thing.
Like,
you know?
Theoretically and like fundamentally, I love this because you get community feedback right away. Mm-hmm. You get to understand, okay, people really like this and they don't seem to like this. When it like, it's such a nice luxury for the developer, not only because you're not say they put 2 years of work into this game.
Yeah.
Now they're putting out this early access, and then they'll put in another 2 years until it's finished, right? Mm-hmm. So you're getting an idea of who's buying the game ahead of time, and you're like, okay, we're actually doing something that people really like. Like, that's nice. That's like affirming. You're getting actual relevant information about the sales of your game. It also is like so many things I like about it. It's just like there's something in me that sometimes is like, man, I just want to play the whole thing. Yeah. You know, like it's like, like if this game came out in 2 years and was all 10, I would probably still love it, you know?
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, I love the idea. I love the fact that developers have that choice nowadays, you know, for the ones that do. But anyway, that was Not For Broadcast. It's a really, really, really cool thing. And
it sounds like it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And that's it for what I've been playing. I have a couple of quick news hits here. It's going to be a bit of a shorter episode, I think. But the first one I have is the Wonderful 101 Remastered Kickstarter. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
So Wonderful 101 was the Wii U game from Platinum. A lot of people really liked this game, but it didn't sell well at all. Mm-hmm. Number one, it was on the Wii U, which sold abysmally bad. Number two, I think it was just kind of a niche. I mean, action games in general are like a niche market.
Yeah.
So this one in particular, I think, was just a little on like the outskirts. It was a little weirder, a little more colorful than your typical action game. But people really, really love it. So what they did was Platinum went to Kickstarter and said, hey, we're looking for $50,000 to make a Switch port of the Wonderful 101. And there's a couple things to unpack here, but let me first just say they've raised almost $1.5 million.
Oh, that's what you're going to say, like $101,000.
No. $1,486,000.
Holy crap.
So they blew their projections out of the water, obviously. But I just want to read a little bit of
Was Platinum Vanquish?
Yeah. Vanquish, Bayonetta.
I remember seeing a little while back that they were talking about remastering.
They did. It's not out yet.
Yeah. Oh.
Vanquish and actually.
Oh, they are getting it.
They're remastering them in one package.
All right. Vanquish and Bayonetta?
Yeah. For PS4 and Xbox coming out in February.
Cool. I remember them saying something, but I was like, oh, I hope it's Vanquish. And I didn't even see that, the Vanquish Bayonetta one. I saw the Wonderful 101, though. Go ahead.
So this one, the interesting thing here is, so their stretch goals, what they came out with,
Right.
On the Kickstarter, $50,000, you get a Switch port of this remaster.
Obviously, demolish that.
$250,000, you get a Steam version. Demolish that.
Yeah.
$500,000, you get a PS4 version. Demolish that. $1 million, there's a time attack mode they're going to add. $1.5 million, they said there's going to be a thing called Luca's First Mission, a brand new 2D side-scrolling adventure starring a young hero. So they're not quite there, but they're going to get there. It's $1,486,000.
A new character?
Luca's First Mission. So it's its own new game.
Okay.
In this universe, I guess. And then at 1.75, they're doing a remix soundtrack. The things we want to unpack here is, number one, $50,000 is not enough to make a game at all. So, I should have also mentioned, it's coming out in April for Switch.
So that leads me to believe they made this, and then maybe they needed a few extra bucks to finish it.
Exactly. So I think it was, I don't hate that either. I just wish it was maybe out there a little more. Like, it's clearly this was being made. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like...
Without a doubt.
Yeah. But the other part is the rest of the stuff that's coming, like I think the Steam version, the PS4, the Lucas First Mission, the Time Attack, everything like that, that's all coming late this year. It's not coming at the launch in April. So it'll come to Switch in April. And I'm just happy because I want more people to play the game that people like. Yeah. I actually want to play it because I didn't play it on Wii U.
Yeah, neither did I.
So it's a cool thing overall. I'm definitely not poo-pooing it or saying anything bad about it. I just think it's kind of funny that they're like, hey, we need $50,000 and we make a Switch port. But I'm glad they got extra funding because Platinum is a studio that I love their work, and I feel like they don't sell as well as they should sometimes. So that's pretty cool. Next on the list, I have Dan Houser leaves Rockstar.
Saw that.
So Dan Houser,
two of them, right?
The Houser brothers, yeah. The other Houser is staying as of now. But the Houser brothers, actually Dan Houser in particular, is credited with a lot of the writing on the Rockstar games. And, love him or hate him, the writing is a major part of Rockstar games in general.
Yeah.
I tend to say I don't know his particular influence on the writing, process. But I personally do not find the writing particularly good in those games. So who knows if this is a good or a bad thing, but it is notable. That's a big thing. And especially for the fact that they continue to lose like core members of that team that have been around forever. Leslie Benzis, a couple of years ago, actually, I think it might have been last year or the year before, left, and now Dan Houser's leaving. Big deal for Rockstar for sure, and definitely something that we should note. Next, I have Rod Ferguson leaving Microsoft for Blizzard to work on Diablo 4. So Rod Ferguson was the head of Gears for a long time.
Yeah.
And he similarly was responsible for a lot of the things that people love about Gears. Obviously, when somebody leaves a studio, they already have what they have, and you kind of have a framework for what Gears is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how that would affect, like a Gears 6 in the future or whatever. Probably not very much, if we're being honest. But the interesting thing is Rob Ferguson's kind of noted as being like a closer, like coming in and getting the job done when it needs to get done. And I know we talked about this before. A lot of people assume that Diablo 4 is like a ways off because it was just recently announced and, whatever.
And we got Immortal.
Yeah. But I am kind of thinking that this game is like coming out late this year. Like
a lot closer than they think.
Yeah, I really think so. And I have no basis for that. I just have a feeling. But we'll see. I think it's interesting, Rod Ferguson going there, and it's like, Maybe he's trying to get the job done because they're a little behind schedule or whatever. But we shall see.
Interesting, yeah.
Last one I have here is a very exciting one for me. The game Below by Capybara.
Yeah. I've heard.
You've heard. Pretty good game.
Yeah, pretty decent.
Below is getting a free update this spring alongside the release on PS4. So it's releasing on PS4.
Okay.
And it's coming with a new free update called Explore Mode.
Okay.
This is very, very exciting because I'm going to read to you from a Rock, Paper, Shotgun article by Natalie Clayton. Explore removes hunger and thirst from the game. All instant kills have been likewise cold. All damage is now applied through bleeding, allowing more time to recover. Bonfires are now permanent checkpoints, letting you treat the entire game as one long, uninterrupted descent. That punishing old experience is still available under a new name and a different save file called Survive. So there will be Explore and Survive. The thing about this game, and I talked a lot about this game when it came out.
Yeah.
It is so good in so many ways. I love the style, love the atmosphere. The music's amazing. I love the way the game feels to play. It's scary, it's dangerous, everything you're doing. But when you get down to like
level 20 and
40 and you die and you lose your lantern and now you have to get back to level 40 without a lantern.
Yeah.
It was to the point where it's like you have a game here that we should love. And it's like, it's just so unnecessarily frustrating.
Too brutal at that point, yeah.
Like, it's exactly what I would have asked for is you save at a bonfire. So, like, bonfire, you don't find a bonfire everywhere.
Yeah.
But when you find one, that's like a safe haven. That is going to make the game so much better, in my opinion. And it turns a game that I adore into a game that I can recommend and be like, you should play this because it's just a fantastic, mysterious, eerie, beautiful game. And when you get to the end points of that game, like there's some really weird shit going on, and it's really, really cool. And it's such a shame that probably 5% of the audience saw any of that. So I think this is an absolutely huge change for this game, and I really am excited to not only play it myself, but hopefully have you guys try it. And,
I mean,
and
I remember playing it and loving it, but again, it was just
too brutal.
It was too brutal.
I know.
I definitely didn't see the ending.
It's such a good game, and it was just I was frustrated with it in the moment, being like, I love this. Like it's just, you don't need this to be this brutal. Like you don't. So that's really exciting. That's coming this spring. Alongside the launch on PS4. So
that's awesome.
Keep an eye out for that. And I think, unless there's anything else,
I don't believe so. I mean, it's early in the year.
It's early in the year. I think it's so funny that every single game I played this year is early access.
Listen, that's a good start to January.
It's an awesome start to January, but usually there's like a couple big games sprinkled here and there, and then there's nothing until March.
We've had a bunch of pushbacks. So
I know, that's true. But yeah, I mean,
Dreams is what I'm excited for.
Dreams launches February 14th
with the single player campaign
and the final 1.0 version. Yeah,
which is what, it's an extra $40, I think, right? Or
I don't know.
I believe, because what did we pay for early access? 20?
I think it was 30.
30. Then I think they finished it up.
It is a full 60.
It's a full 60, I believe.
And if you're early access, you just pay the
extra or whatever difference.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it.
I think so.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the time next episode comes out, we'll have jumped into that. So look forward to that. And I guess that's it for this episode. Thank you, Shelby, for being here.
As always, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Dan, we miss you, buddy. Get well. And catch us on the next episode of the Circle Back Podcast. Until then, peace. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching and or listening. Just here to remind you that you can find us by searching for Circle Back Podcast or Circle Back Gaming on any of these podcast services: Anchor, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, or Stitcher. By God, I'm out of breath because of all these podcast services, but you can find us anywhere there. Also, you can find our video version on YouTube by searching Circleback Podcast or Circleback Gaming, and the rest of the videos we do. Thanks, guys.